Hey team, we just filmed the International Hip Space Station class. Really intergalactic, I would say.
Intergalactic hip space.
Lots of space puns. But I wanted to really highlight, there's a kind of intense section right at the end where we do some quarter hip cars. We sort of work through the hip car in little chunks from both quadruped and laying on our backs. And the goal with those is to train one segment of the hip car at a time. And we're really kind of focusing on the corners that we tend to just breeze through when we're doing the full car. And so part of the reason we're doing that short chunk is to be like, how about this part that normally is like, what I will say from the inside that I really noticed is that those spots that I breeze through, when I focused in on just maximizing my range of motion there, it was really tempting to get my back and my pelvis moving and involved. So I just want to really lift up the necessity for like a seriously good brace, and that it's going to feel probably like that is the hardest thing that you're doing, and then the hip motion is a little bit secondary, even though the hip motion is intense. Particularly in quadruped, as we're doing those segments, Will had put his hand on my low back, which was super helpful. If you don't have that, grab like a shoe or a yoga block or whatever you have, just anything to give you a little bit more tactile sensation, so that as you're doing those things, you can feel, right, especially when we're trying to bring that leg across, it's so tempting to just kind of let the pelvis rotate too. Of course, this is clinging to my back because it's like a non-skid thing, but like, boop, you want something that'll move and give you some feedback so that you can feel if you're starting to move your pelvis.
It's such a good general point too. I just want to jump in around what you're saying, how when you explore those places that are not as clear or as part of your normal movement, like you might be surprised by what you find. So part of that might be like, oh, this is really demanding on another part of my body. So that's a super legitimate limit in a way to respect and not push past that boundary. There are others though as well. Like sometimes you might move into a range that feels a little nervy and you're like, whoa, that's new. You might move into a range and it's like, that feels like a joint pinch, like closing angle pain, or maybe it just feels uncomfortable. Like, you know, when we're moving into flexion here, you're pulling your thigh into your belly and it compresses your belly in an uncomfortable way. That's perfectly legitimate grounds to go, that's the end of my range actually. And that's really the whole reason that we want to explore those corners of motion that are not as common, is to start to go, oh, like what is my limit there? What is causing that limitation? Am I aware of it? Am I feeling safe and able to move through that area? Because maybe it's a spot that actually you should shift some focus to with your training.
Yeah, for sure. The other piece that I wanted to lift up about this class was in the couch section where we're doing our externally rotated pails and rails. The quality of stretch that I felt one side to the other was quite different. So if you find that, totally legit. And then accordingly, the amount that I was able to ramp up my effort to one side to the other was very different. So Will cues us to, you know, ramp to an intensity where we feel like safe and solid and strong, right? But like I found myself, even in this moment, even as myself, being like, well, I can go more. I got to show them, you know, the thing. But really, like, what's going to be most valuable for your tissues is holding the strongest contraction that stays in that target tissue. And what I noticed, especially like in my left hip, as I tried to ramp higher, all of a sudden the area that I'd been feeling stretching, feeling contracting, it was like it just went dark. And all of a sudden there was like other sensations happening, but I was no longer effectively training the target tissue. So you'll get actually more training effect staying at a lower intensity as long as you're still feeling sensation in the target tissue. So just a little reminder to like do what the tissue needs versus doing what your brain perceives as the right or like star student move.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, and what your tissue needs, the only person who even has a chance of knowing what your tissue needs is you, because you can actually feel that moment that Hannah's describing where it switches over from super specific, maybe medium intensity to no longer specific. And specificity is just such an overarching principle for any kind of physical training you want to do, that you really want to honor that and respect that sort of law. It's really a law of specificity when it comes to training.
Yeah. Physics. / if you are one of those kind of go-getter, overachiever types, you will make progress faster if you stay in that target tissue and give it, even if you're only able to give 30% effort and we're cueing you to 70, if you get 5 sessions over 5 weeks of 30-40% effort, your tissues are going to get stronger and progress faster than if you do a fake 70.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
All right. Have fun with that one and let us know what your questions are.
Yeah. See ya.